Hey, this is possibly a little bit of a recap. Just did a live stream, had an issue, dropped out, and I may have lost that video completely. And so, recap portion. And by the way, if you like this, subscribe down below. You all know the deal. More subscribers I get, more videos I can put out, more time I'll put into this. So I'm going to show you real quick what I did in the last video, just in case you didn't catch it. We went ahead and we started our build plate. Basically, we installed our heater pad. I will say quickly how I do that, how I've done that. I basically stated, and I'll still state, the fact that it's a lot like putting vinyl graphics on something. Start off with a small portion of it with the backer off of it. Start from the inside, work your way out. Any air, anything like that will work its way out as well. Pull it back a little bit further, and then again, work your way out, back, work your way back. Probably about 5 or 6 times until you get to the last 75–80% of it. Remove the rest of it, work down the middle, work your way backwards and out to get rid of any air bubbles that might be in there. Once I did that, we went ahead and got our thermal fuse in using an M5 screw. These are already tapped and cut out for a thread. No thermal paste or anything on there. I don't believe there's any need for it. This is a ceramic piece, so be mindful of that. You do not want to over tighten it. You may want to check the tightness on it once you do heat up your bed once or twice. But other than that, that is where we're at. So we got that done, and then I ran into a little bit of an issue with the next part of this whole build, which was the Z-axis Z end stop pin. So I had all the parts. I didn't have the toothed pulley the way that it shows there, and maybe I don't know how to read, or maybe I'm just an American guy. I didn't read, even though I tell you guys to read. I didn't realize that I had to deflange my 20 tooth part. So I'm gonna kind of go over real quick as to what it looked like and what I did to do that. So what I wound up with in the bag is a part like that with a flange on the end, and basically you wind up taking this off. Okay, so without destroying the teeth on this, you know, people say use pliers or something like that. That was not working for me. I just don't want to destroy the part when I'm doing it. So what I found, the easiest way I found to do it was, and I'll just kind of mimic it here because I'm not going to do it again. I probably could push it back on there and do it. But I put this inside of a vise and I stuck it up so it was proud, probably about, I don't know, 3/8 of an inch or so. So picture this inside of a vise being held like this on the sides. And then I ran my needle nose pliers underneath it like this, and then kind of pry it upwards like this. So that allowed me to kind of hold on to this, not put it on teeth, not grab it with 2 pairs of pliers and kind of monkey it down and then pop that off without too much horrible trouble. So took a little bit of thought, but finally got that. So now we have that, we can go ahead and move on with the actual building of this. So once we get the flange out, what we're looking to do is use our 33mm shaft and the grub screws that came with that to put this part together. So we're looking at something similar to this right here. There's no mention anywhere about using any type of thread lock or anything on that, so we're not going to worry about that. So it looks like there's about 3mm sticking out on the back side of that, so we'll go ahead and try to mimic what we have in the picture. So the picture shows like that. There's not really any measurements on there, so we'll tighten up our grub screws. Wind up with this right here. Okay, and back to the screen. All right, So this page right here is talking specifically, I did read this one, needless to say it says important notice on it, so I did grab that one out. So basically what this page is telling you is that this shaft is not, it's not a D shaft, it doesn't have a cut on one side of it, but what they want you to do is once you get everything assembled is to basically go back to this and then cut a slot, a little portion of it, probably with a Dremel tool, something similar, so your grub screw is actually locked in place in that little area. I've gone ahead and printed this off. I stuck it to my wall over here so I don't forget it, because this is definitely something I'm going to forget. All right. So, assembly of our Z end stop pin assembly. All right. So what we need is our portion that we just built. We also need our printed part for this. It's got the VORON symbol on the front. It's got a hole in the top and has some grooves on the back there. All right, so we need that. We also are going to need our micro switch, and our micro switch needs to have removed the lever. So micro switch with the lever removed right there. So these levers have a cut inside of them, right up them. So basically you can give them a squeeze, and if you give them a good squeeze, they actually can pull out pretty easily. So there's that. And then we need our JST 3-pin connector right there. We need our M3x20 screws, and then we need some self-tapping M2 screws, which are right there as well. All right, so assembly. Let's see if we can do this here. We have the shaft. Looks to be going in. Oh, wow, that's tight. All right, what does go? All right, so that's going in like that. Looks like it's supposed to go all the way in. We might have to give that a little bit of persuasion to get where we need it. Almost there. See if I can give that a little tap with something. I'll get these NATO nose back out and kind of right there. Perfect. Hopefully we don't need that again. If you need a hammer, it's going bad sometimes. All right, so we got that in. That was really tight, but did make a kit in. And as you can see on the back side of that, it's basically the pin that's going to make your contact on your switch. So speaking of that, the switch is going to go in. It looks like we have the VORON symbol in that way, the large N goes that way, so it looks like the switch is going to go in with the button on the switch facing towards the back. That. You can hear it clicking. So I guess that's good. I'm actually going to back out these grubs a little bit. And back out this a little bit until we get that flush. Okay. So then I'm going to tighten it so it's just not pushing in the switch. So at this point, it's just barely not touching that switch. Next part is our connector, and they're showing it with, actually, are they using a male or a female there? They show, interesting. they show a little pin there. No, it's definitely okay. So the way connectors work for the most part, and unless you have reverse polarity, is whatever the most center of a connector is male or female. And as biology would tell us, male is the part sticking out, female is the part that the male part sticks into. And that's about as far as we'll go on that. So there is your male. It's not written this way in the manual, but your male JST 3-pin connector. And I'm going to face this like so. And then it says it's possible, sorry, just correctly Microsoft if you wish. Okay. So I wasn't able to jump over my connection points. So once I got that the connector in here, and I got my switch in, connecting all three just for security reasons. You only need 2 pins. It's a switch, you know, so you're only switching one item. So 2 pins. So I tin my pieces. So the way you go about tinning is you heat up your pin, you heat up your metal part, and you float your solder to the part. You don't heat up solder. Never, ever, ever, when you are soldering something new, do you ever heat up your solder other than when you're tinning your actual tip. There are plenty of videos to teach you how to do soldering. If you're not a solderer, if you haven't soldered before, watch those videos. I know it seems simple, it seems kind of stupid. You're just heating up metal and you're gluing stuff together with metal, so to speak. But there are some things that you get used to, and it's a skill. You know, it's just like anything else. You have to practice it. It's nothing overly hard, but if you haven't done it before, it could be difficult. So we jump solder over these pins right here. The jumps were, I don't know, probably about 3/16 of an inch. So basically you want to put a glob of solder on either side, glob of solder on either side, glob of solder on either side. Let them cool. You don't want to overheat these pins, or else this plastic will melt and the pins will move. But once they do cool, what I did is I quickly would heat up the solder on the pin side and then heat up the other side and then pull it over. Just pull your tip over, and that will jump your solder. Again, it's a skill thing. You might have trouble doing it, but a little bit of practice, you should be able to do it. So tin, pull, tin, pull, tin, pull. Let it cool off, and then check continuity between your pin inside of your connector and the base of your switch. So basically, one lead on the pin, one lead on switch. Lead on pin, switch, lead on pin, switch. Get all those done, you should be good. All right, so at that point you have your actual end stop, and you're ready to move on to actually getting into your build plate. So on the build plate portion of this, and mounting that to the actual VORON, which is fun and exciting because you get to get back to the machine. Okay, pull that up while that picture's up. Again, this is kind of one of those areas where the manual falls a little bit short for somebody that's not an accomplished builder of 3D printers. You know, you might build all this other stuff. So if you haven't done this, then there's some things missing. You know, for instance, on this particular shot, they're showing that you are using the knurled nuts, you're using your bolts, and they're going down. I mean, they're not showing a T-nut in the track. I assume you're going to use a T-nut in the track. I think anybody would, but it'd be nice if they at least showed it in the picture, which they don't. They are talking about a 3-point bed mounting system due to warping. So that's just basically giving you, or the metal, place to expand and contract, not using that the fourth piece. So you're allowing a little bit more room for expansion and contraction. So we'll do, let's see here. Let's go to that. All right, so This is my printer. I'm in the front. This is the rear. This is where wiring and cabling is going to go. These are the tracks. This right here is one of the knurled nuts, which is an M4. So it does spin freely on the M3 screw that you're putting in there. So M3 screws, M4 knurled nuts. Not a big deal. They're meant to be free. Okay. So you don't want any of this too stiff. If you remember, our rails at this point are still movable. They're a little bit less so now because we have the DINs on the back holding, but they are manipulatable. Manipulatable? Movable. How about that? All right, so what we want to do is basically, there are grooves in this FORMBOT kit for the screw heads. So you're going to line it so that, and I left the screws really proud. I didn't tighten them down at all, other than to catch the T-nuts. So that's how we should be sitting. Everything is flush. Everything is kind of where we want at this point. Everything's just floating. Nothing's tight. Nothing's tight at all. So let's see here. We're now going to actually install the Z end stop. Okay. Now, one thing to note on this picture is the connector on the bottom of it. The connector on the back end of your end stop is facing the rear of the machine. You can tell that because it's actually facing in the picture. It's facing the same direction as the wiring coming out of the back of the actual build plate. So let's see here. So what we want to do is we want to mount this so the connector is facing the same direction as our wires. So it's going to go like that because it is in between rails as well. So I've already slid some T-nuts in there, but I do want to move them a little bit. And then see if I can align them. We get one where we want it. And guess we missed that. All right, let's see if we can get that where we need it. All right, there we go. And then the second one, put that through. See if I can eyeball on it right there. Around about where we need to be. Screw in. There we go. All right. So again, I'm not going to tighten this. Just going to slide everything where it is kind of going to live. Put that right there. And I believe right about where we want to be at this point. All right. Blank screen. All right, so going to cut this into multi-parts just so everybody doesn't have to walk through a whole long video on all the construction of this, but I am going to be recording it right after this one. Take a quick break. So there's your bed. If you like what I'm doing, subscribe. If you have comments, please leave them below. If you have any questions, please leave those below. If you have any suggestions or if you have any information that changes my mind about how I'm doing something on this build, leave that below. And one last time, if you haven't subscribed, please do. Next time, we'll be working on the AB drive modules. So you should see that video go out pretty quickly after this one. So stay tuned and we'll continue this build. Thanks.